Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. We are back once again with the princess of all the True Hills herself, Miss Chrissy Love.
Hello, hello, hello.
And this is our Dark Side of the Ring Season 2 review. This time it is Episode 8, Herb Abrams' story, Cocaine and Cowboy Boots.
Oh my
Very,
God. Wow. What a
very
great title.
very interesting, intriguing title for a very interesting and intriguing man. But before we get into anything, please you can push the watermark logo on this video, push the subscribe button, and push the bell to stay notified for all the great content right here on True Hill Heat. Take a look at our playlist for all of the past episodes of Dark Side of the Ring Season 2 and enjoy all the great content right here on True Hill Heat. But this one is quite possibly my biggest surprise of the season for me. Like
Yes,
this was one
absolutely.
episode where I knew a little bit about it, but didn't really know the full story, like the behind the scenes story. Like I've seen different wrestling YouTube channels like us talk about Herb Abrams and the UWF. Wrestling with Regret did a very video on it a couple of years ago, but I had never got the in-depth story from the people that were actually there, like this documentary. So, what were your thoughts on this great story, the Herb Abrams story?
I had never known of Mr. Abrams, and I was not really going into the episode with any type of expectation because I didn't know what I was going to get. But I was very, very surprised and very, very happy at what I saw, and they delivered yet another good episode of Dark Side of the Ring.
I love this episode. There
It
was a
was
lot of cocaine and crazy stories.
Oh my! It was just like story after story. It was like really nothing concrete. It's just different stories about this gentleman and people's interactions with him. That's what the episode was about.
Pretty much. It was a human interest piece. It was about a human being and his journey in the world of professional wrestling. So to set the stage, in the 1990s, the Universal Wrestling Federation, the
Hmm.
UWF, appeared out of nowhere to make noise
Yes.
on the wrestling scene, and the man behind that was Herb Abrams. Herb Abrams saw the buzz and the success of the WWF and wanted to make a foothold on the West Coast. He was a professional wrestling fan that
Hmm.
intermingled with the business, got in touch with the conventions, and then we get into like who we talk to first is of course hardcore
Uh,
legend,
Mr.
WWE
McFoley.
WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley. What was your thoughts on Mick Foley throughout this whole documentary? I feel like he added a lot of warmth to it. He
Yeah.
told the story
Yeah.
in a very heartwarming way,
Hmm.
and more of he focused on her brave rooms more of as a human being than a part of the wrestling business and what he did become as a character as well.
Correct. Exactly. Mick Foley definitely gave us that insight and gave us the more of the wrestling side and not the personal side of Mr. Abrams, who looks like Jonah Hill. Or
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill looks like him. If if
Jonah
if he does, if there is a movie about him, get Jonah Hill.
First great idea from this review. Jonah Hill plays Herb Abrams in the UWF story. I am with it. Put your comments down below. Who do you think plays Herb Abrams in the Herb Abrams Cocaine and Cowboy Boots a movie? I think in 5 years, if someone doesn't come up with that, someone watching this review should. If you are
I'm just
watching this,
saying, if you've seen Wolf of Wall Street, you've seen Jonah Hill in that film, and you've seen his character. Just saying, because I'm like, don't he look like somebody? I'm like, that man, he just. My husband was like Jonah Hill, and I was like, oh, Wolf of Wall Street, Jonah Hill, yes, cocaine. It's perfect. It's wonderful.
okay, makes sense. It just makes sense. So they introduced us to John Arezzi. As Foley says, he was working a Weekend of Champions convention
Mm-hmm.
that Arezzi ran, and that Arezzi already knew about Herb Abrams, that he was a professional wrestling fan, and that he had a lot of money and wanted to get involved in the business. So
Yep.
What's your thoughts on professional wrestling fans wanting to be a part of the business? That could be a number of things. A lot of wrestlers start off
They're all
as
fast fans.
wrestling
Yes.
fans.
Hmm.
A couple of people from behind the scenes start off as wrestling fans. So, what's your thoughts on wrestling fans becoming a part of the business?
I mean, it's always a business where people can be a part of, whether even if you're not in the ring, you can definitely put your mark on it some kind of way. So I don't see it as a bad thing. Anyone would want to be a part of this industry. It's a great industry. It's fun. It's like being a kid all the time for me. It's enjoying and having fun all the time.
It's a great escape. So it's
Right.
very understandable that Herb Abrams wanted to become more a part of it. And at this convention, the Weekends of Champions convention, he starts recruiting a whole bunch of
With the
wrestlers to
wrestlers.
to
Yep.
make up the UWF. Foley is one of them, as well as another person that was a talking head on the episode, Rick Allen, who was known as Sunny Beach.
Mhm.
He was said that Herb was looking to do big things with him and the UWF. We
Yep.
also had Steve the Wild Thing Ray, who didn't even see himself as a professional wrestler, but the belief of Herb
um.
Abrams
Mhm.
motivated him to become a success in professional wrestling. So
You had
it's
you definitely, yeah, you had another one was Brian Blair.
yes,
He was
Brian
there.
the Brian Blair.
The Blind Man, excuse me. Yes. Definitely another one that was there. He had more people behind him, but to sell the product, he had to start it up, basically.
Yeah, he had to get wrestlers. He had to get individuals behind the scene. We are introduced to Lenny Duke, who was Herb's best friend, pretty much, and a promoter, general manager for the UWF. And Lenny Duke kind of talked about their friendship. He's the
Hmm.
person that you could see that Herb's the aftermath of Herb Raven's life really affected him and affects him even
Yeah.
to this day. The
Yes,
way
he
he talked
was.
about it, but he was definitely a instrumental part in UWF becoming into existence behind the scenes, and adds a lot of depth into Herb, the person in this documentary, in my opinion.
Hmm. Definitely. Lenny was one of the ones that I called as one of the standout people from the episode for me. I want to say. Lenny,
Yeah,
and then it was Lenny, and then it was Marty Yesberg, excuse me, Marty,
Marty Gasper, yes, the
the
Colonel,
Colonel. Yes, those
absolutely.
were my two people that stood out for this episode for me.
I definitely agree with you. Agree with you there. They talk about Herb Abrams and his press conference to announce the UWF. He had Blackjack Mulligan would be a booker. He said that, but except that Blackjack Mulligan was in jail at the time. He said that Bruiser Brody would be a top star for the
and,
UWF, but
and
he
he had
had
died.
died the year before. So, oops. Foley admits it was over the top, but that's what professional wrestling was all about. Sir Herb Abrams felt right at home in the business. Blair mentions that he only knew Herb as a businessman of some kind. No
Right,
one really, and that's another thing that no one kind of, and we're talking
really
about
knew
the other.
him. Yeah,
Yeah, we were talking about the other big thing that no one kind of could get a consistent answer with throughout this documentary. But
because they never knew what he did.
the first one was didn't no one really knew how he made it, how he was a businessman, how he made his money. So that was very interesting. I don't know.
I'm just saying, hello.
I don't know. He had a big supply of cocaine. I don't know.
Always, everyone said the same thing every time they seen him was he always had nose candy with him.
Pounds of.
Pounds of it. A mirror. That was Marty's first thing when he first met him. He showed up at a suite, which he thought was for him, but it wasn't. And he said he had a very long night because Marty showed up. I mean, I'm not Marty. Herb showed up with two ladies and he said two high scale ladies, not like these ones that you see on the in North Carolina. He said these are two upscale ladies. And what he said was like he's like, it was all that in a bag of chips. I was like, who says that?
It was all that and a bag of potato chips. He said it was. Yeah, I haven't heard that since the
And
like.
you
Yeah, it's been since like the early '90s since I heard something that outrageous. That was
he
fun.
said
That was
he said
fun.
it was a long night for them. Put it like that.
Yes, he had basically a porno going on in his suite right in front of him, with nose candy and hookers. Herb Abrams knows how to party. And I said it on Twitter. If we had to choose one person from our YouTube channel to be Herb Abrams, who would it be? And I said Drunk Guy JJ. Drunk Guy JJ. Not Top Guy JJ. Drunk Guy JJ would be our Herb Abrams. Because, like Herb Abrams, Drunk Guy JJ is here for a good time, not a long
Not a
time.
long time. Makes sense.
So they come back to Lenny talking about the UWF and showing he shows off the UWF television title, which is a very
Oh, unique looking television belt. And I'm like, what is he speaking of with the, with the FU? And I'm like, wait. And I was like, oh, okay. When you fold up the U and the, the W, you see F and then U at the end, saying that to Vince McMahon, supposedly. Like, look, I could do
exactly
this without you.
exactly because Herb went to Vince and
And
basically
asked him, yeah.
asked him if he can promote on the West Coast. With like, what do you think about that? The balls of Herb Abrams, the
Right,
Vince
just to show
McMahon.
up.
Vince
Just
McMahon,
showing up at
five,
someone's office.
five WrestleManias in. He says, "Let me run things on the West Coast for you. You got the East Coast. Let me run things on the West Coast for you." What do you think about that?
He had very high hopes. He was a big dreamer, and he knew that he can make his dreams come true, whether or not. And once Vince, sent him away, he's like, "No, I'm not doing this." He's like, "I'm going to show him I can do this. I got money too."
He's like, I'm a show him. I'm gonna show him Vince, and show him he did. He started up the UWF, and like Mick Foley said, they had a pretty good crop of talent to start off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Fury Hour. Well, he had a UWF show where none other than Andre the Giant, as revenge for Vince turning him down, shows up. And as soon as Andre goes down to the ring, as soon as he comes back, he gets a phone
He gets a
call
phone
from
call
his.
from Vince and goes back over there. Nobody's loyal.
Someone,
Nobody.
someone said it on Twitter, but I think it's definitely correct. The Vince McMahon has had at least a couple of minutes dedicated in each episode of this documentary so far.
Everyone.
Of this season, of season 2 especially, there's been the Vince McMahon portion of every piece of this document, of every piece
So
of these shows.
true. So true.
But this was the Vince McMahon part, and Vince showing his power got Andre to come right back to the WWE, to the WWF at the time,
Mm-hmm.
before anything really was really affected, or Herb could really take advantage of it. He only had 200 people in the building when Andre showed up, but they were
Yep.
all on their feet, as Lenny said.
Yes. And pretty much Vince told him to get lost, and he brought Andre back with him. And I'm about to say, back then Andre wasn't even like an item to really like sell, because he was starting to, like, his body was starting to take effect on him. But I
Yeah,
guess he was still a draw, basically.
he was still a name. He's still Andre the Giant, and it doesn't matter if he can move or not. That name, that body, like, he's a legend. He was a legend, and he was one of the biggest stars ever in professional wrestling. So it didn't matter if you got him and he couldn't move at all. It was something. October 1st, 1990, UWF Fury Hour debuts with Herb Abrams on commentary along with Bruno San Martino. What was your thoughts on the clips that we saw of the UWF Fury Hour? Very unique look. A couple of big
Yes.
stars. Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. You had
Yeah.
TJ Strongbow, Dan Spivey, Sid Vicious was there at one point. Of course,
Yes.
the aforementioned Cactus Jack, Mick Foley. So
Bam
what a
Bam Bigelow.
Bam Bam Bigelow, the beast of the beast from the east.
I mean, he had a few people on his show. I mean, it was very interesting to look at this and see. My question was, once he left Vince, and it was still the '90s. Once after a while, why he didn't approach Ted Turner, which is my question.
I mean, that's a very interesting question, and maybe he did. We never,
Oh yeah, we'll never know. You're right.
we may never know, but that is a very good question. I mean, What do you guys think in the comment section? Post down below. Do you think that Ted Turner would be more entertained the idea of of working with the UWF in 1990 than Vince McMahon did?
Hmm.
So yeah, the next step for the UWF in their takeover, in their attempt to take over in the WWF, was merchandise
Merch.
with the
Ah,
with
as
the
Mick Foley says.
with the Herbie cookies. The Herbie cookies. They had pina colada cookies. You had the what was it? The Brian B. Blair caramel cookie.
I mean, everyone had their face on a bag, which was like a cheesy looking bag. I was like, who would want to buy this? And then like he tried to get ice cream, but that didn't work. So he only had like t-shirts and he had cookies. They said the cookies were good though.
Cookies were good though. It worked for him.
I mean, he sold it, so we'll see.
Yes. So then the next goal for the UWF is to hold a
A
pay
pay
per
per
view.
view.
But before all of that, UWF was desperate to like pop a rating with UWF Fury Hour, so he starts throwing out ridiculous gimmicks,
Hmm.
gimmick matches and stuff like that, and even to the point he becomes a
And a part
predecessor.
of it, yes.
He becomes a predecessor for Vince McMahon, for Eric Bischoff, for Dixie Carter, for
He's like Tiger King.
every authority figure and that really be or owner that became an authority figure within their company. He is the predecessor for it. Herb Abrams became a part of the story, becoming a character on UWF Fury Hour, feuding with the Colonel, Marty Yesberg.
Yes.
Quite interesting promos, especially the one where he's bleeding and shouting a lot.
Yeah. I'm like, who? No, this was the cheesiest thing I've ever seen. I was like, no wonder you had 10, about 100 people watching you. Because I mean, like, yeah.
That's how that worked out. So
Yep.
it was on. They held the pay per view in their pay per view temp in Palmetto, Florida,
Florida, yes.
which is an hour away from the closest major city. He picked a place that the WWF would use for TV tapings, and Herb produced there would be major news media there, and that there would be millions of fans watching. He said this on a radio show when he was promoting the event, and people were skeptical if they would sell out that big of a building, and
It didn't.
skeptical for good reason.
First of all, he was high the whole show. He was partying like days before the show. And yeah, no one showed up, unfortunately.
Yes, the show was not even close to a sellout. Herb had been partying for days before then in Florida, and they had to turn the lights down on the
Down,
arena
so dark,
to
yes.
hide the empty seats. And it was so sad seeing how crushed Herb was when they were
Yeah.
doing him. He's like, "Yeah, I want him to win." It's like, oh, this poor guy.
Yeah, he tried his best. Poor little Tink Tink. It's all.
So Foley talks about his matchup at the pay-per-view, talking about he versed his idol Jimmy Snuka, and he said with all the empty seats, he just saw it as a way to do more cool stuff. What
Well,
it
that was
turned
at the
out.
MGM. That was the next pay per view, which was at the MGM Grand. That one.
Oh,
The one
okay,
with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Snuka.
You're right. No. But he said that about the one in Palmetto. He said
Oh
that about
yes,
the
yes,
Palmetto
yes.
one.
He
He
said,
said
yeah,
with all the empty seats, it's like a thing to do cool
you can
seats.
do whatever
But
you
yeah,
want.
yeah, you're actually right. He versed Jimmy Snuka at the second one in the
Yes.
MGM Grand. So yeah, this one he just said that it was like it's okay. He said the empty seats is cool. It's cool to use.
Cool. He said you can do whatever you want because Herb doesn't care. He said Herb said you can do whatever you want.
And Foley's an eternal optimist. You gotta love Foley.
Foley just wants to sell the product. I mean,
Yes,
that's when people started not getting paid though.
exactly. Starting with that big show in Palmetto, Florida, the talent started to not get paid, and then there was a TV taping where not only the talent were approaching Herb about not getting paid, but the entire TV staff and crew were complaining about not getting paid, and then it
Yeah.
escalated to a dangerous point. You could tell them more about that.
Pretty that he started writing checks for people. And then once they called the bank, they said, "Yeah, he got the bank. He got the money in the bank." And they was like, "Okay with it." But he had two bank accounts, one that had all of the money, and the other one that didn't have any money. And unfortunately, that's how he was. I don't know how people were still taking checks back then, and like for these type of businesses, how are you taking checks? Um, yeah, he was committing some type of craziness of fraud or whatever, just like trying not to pay these people.
He was playing a very dangerous game, to
Yeah.
say the least.
Yep.
And yes, they got so irate with him that they held him over a building, pretty much.
Yep. There
Whew.
were five flights, 5 story, excuse me, and pretty much they started coming after the other workers, saying, "We know you know where the money is at." Like people approached Marty and was like, "Yeah, I need this money. I'm not getting paid. What's going on?" And Marty was like, I mean, I don't know what to tell y'all."
He was getting threats. Marty was getting threats over the phone for being associated with the
Yep,
company. So
guilty by association.
it was a tough time to be
Hmm.
Herb Abrams. So Herb was now forced to promote shows in smaller towns, but that didn't stop him from partying harder.
Oh,
So B. Brian Blair talks about his attempt to try to get
get
money
money. Hmm.
from Herb Abrams, and he comes into a hotel room that has a hooker at the door, a hooker on the bed with Herb.
Herb.
How he knows they're hookers is he pays them right in front of Blair, and it's 3,000 each
And
for
he sent
the
him checks.
says.
Let's give
We'll
it
get to
checks.
that. We'll get to that. You guys get to the checks, and he has a pound of coke on the nightstand, and that right
Yep.
there. I'm just saying, he was a coke dealer. I'll say it right now.
Yep.
He was a coke dealer. That's what I'm convinced. He was a coke dealer. He's a part of a coke or a drug family. I don't know, but Herb Abrams was affiliated in some part of the coke business. That's all I'm
I
gonna say.
mean, listen, it's crazy. I mean, but your theory is probably is correct, sir.
I'm just saying. They talk about Herb's basically his paranoia at a certain
Have to take a
point.
whole. Uh-huh.
Yeah, starting to take over on him. That he would come into like hotel rooms and take like the stuffing out of the pillows in the hotel room, which is like nuts. And then Marty Esberg talks about him looking out the peephole of the hotel rooms and saying, "They're coming,
They're coming. And he was like,
they're coming."
he's like, yeah, they are.
Yes, they are. Exactly. So
It's
yes,
really a poor thing.
so they talk about Herb. He tries to at one point pay a hooker with the check, with the check. Yes,
And
he
she was
tries to
like,
pay.
nope.
She says nope, and she is ready for the okie doke from Herb apparently because she has some thugs bust in the
Just in the
door
door.
and come in and try to attack her, and her winds up jumping out the window butt naked, only wearing his cowboy boots, covered probably covered in the cocaine, and
And
running.
running around in the street naked and calling people saying he needs help.
He does. Clearly he needed some help,
Lenny
so
told him that he needs to go into rehab. He was like, "Nah, man, I'm all right. I'm all right."
this was as Lenny had to tell them this as he approached the second pay per view for the UWF in Las Vegas, Nevada. How he got this idea was, of course, from WrestleMania 9 at the Caesar Palace for the WWF, and he saw the success there, and he said that the best way for them to come back is to come back in the City of Sin in Las Vegas
Hmm.
and have a show at the MGM Grand, the Diamond Brawl, it was called.
The Diamond Brawl, and yet again, only a few people showed up to that event as well, and he had a lot of stars there. He had the card was stacked, and unfortunately, this is when they started. The TV people were looking to get their money, and they wasn't doing the setup. He was like, "Yeah, let me finish setting up," and then he finally had to pay his crew once before like the show was supposed to start, and but unfortunately, no one came.
Excuse me, it was called the Blackjack Brawl. The Blackjack
Oh,
Brawl.
Blackjack Brawl.
Blackjack. I know it was some like poker theme. Someone tried to compare it to Double or Nothing for AEW, and I was just like,
Oh.
oh my god. And then they tried to compare Herb Abrams to Tony Khan, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I get it. I knew this. Was coming. I knew that was coming. But yes,
My
no.
question was, okay, so if because a lot of people were not paid for this show, how did he book the MGM Grand?
That's what I'm saying. Herb
Like,
Abrams
how did?
was a part of some drug affiliation. Like only drug dealers got connections like this. I'm sorry to tell everybody. I'm sorry to tell Lenny Duke. I understand that he's had a great impact on your life, but Herb Abrams was some type of coke dealer. That's all I'm gonna say. I
'Cause
think he
I'm
was a coke dealer. That's where his money came from. That's where his high supply of cocaine came from, and his ability to pay hookers at high volume. These are all signs of someone who is affiliated with the coke industry.
my whole thing was like he has money, but I'm sure it's way a lot of money to book and seal the slot for this place, this venue. Like, if people book these like months in advance, like how'd you book the MGM Grand and then you didn't fill up any of the seats? Like, you had what Mick Foley said, like 200 people there.
Yeah, he said, and then Mick Foley talks about the night before being in Herb's suite, and
Oh yes,
Herb telling him that he thinks that there's gonna be 17,000 fans watching them in the MGM Grand, and that he expected something big, and that he had something huge. He had something that they're gonna lose their minds over. And he
yep,
pulls out these yellow
yellow.
ostrich boots that say UWF in rainbow colors, and he said people would lose their minds over.
Yeah, they're gonna lose their minds over them horrible ass boots. Like, they were hideous. Oh my god, ugh, just horrendous.
Herb
Like,
Abrams
you
owned.
gonna
Herb Abrams owned. Every story they told about this man, I was just like, man, I wish I was around the wrestling business when he was around. Woo! Man, and then like we could talk about like Herb Abrams and his behavior and his commentary at the Blackjack Brawl, but honestly, it wouldn't do any justice. You have to watch
no,
it for yourself. Whether you watch the
yeah.
documentary, whether you go on YouTube and you watch the Blackjack Brawl, which is up on YouTube now. You can find it. It's now accessible to you.
Oh
UWF
wow. Okay.
Blackjack Brawl is up on YouTube. So I suggest you watch it because Herb Abrams was going batshit crazy on the show.
Yeah, yeah. He had no choice. Unfortunately, no one came, so he tried. He was very upset and he was high, and yeah, that's what took over. And yeah, sad to say, but Mick Foley and mostly all the rest of the guys never got paid for that show. And he had a great. He said he had a great match with Jimmy Fly Snuka.
He burst his idol Jimmy Superfly Snuka, went into the audience, got to suplex him on some chairs. They said they were gonna get in trouble, and yeah, like you said earlier, he was like, no, Herb doesn't care. Herb will do it. Herb let us do whatever we want. So
Yep.
yeah, so Herb did only had like 200 people at the MGM Grand, but he said that it was a success because he got to run the MGM Grand. You gotta love Herb, the
He said you
internal
got to see you got to see the
optimist.
bright side of everything. Yep.
So apparently, yes, drugs are as bad as they say, because Herb definitely it would catch up to him, the drugs and everything. But apparently, before caught up to him, he actually came into like a better state. They said that he looked like he was actually better. They showed video of one of his friends visiting him at his office. He was actually fully shaved. He
Save.
did
Yep.
look about like 10 years older, though, I will
Yeah, he
say.
did. Yep. I mean, that's what I mean, you know what it does to you. It's a hell of a drug, you know.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Rick James was not lying. He was trying to teach us something.
Sure was.
But Herb Abrams did not listen to the teachings of Rick James, and he did not clean his act up completely. Sunny Beach talks about basically the night in question. It was July 23rd, 1996. Police respond to an unbelievable scene at Herb's office. The details are sparse, but cocaine and hookers were apparently involved. It seems that he also destroyed his office with a baseball bat, and the escorts may have tried to rob him.
Rob him
And he decided to chase them while naked with the bat. He had cocaine and baby oil all over
all
his
over him.
body, and there was so this is where it came to conflicting stories at its best of this night on question of July 23rd, 1996. So I think I tried to write down who had the different story, but one person
It was
said
hard to say because everyone was said so many things and they were like going back and forth. Really, but it's so many conflicting stories.
so. They say that there was rumors that the police sodomized Herb with the nightsticks, and he either had a heart attack or a seizure. At that point,
Yes,
there was also the rumors that when he got to the jail cell, he had a seizure in the jail cell
he's out of the jail.
after arriving there. And it still seems like overall it just seems like no one really knows what happens to Herb Abrams on that night.
Yep.
B. Blind Brer says that he heard that he had died in the back of the police car, and
Hmm.
he just knows, and he summed it up perfectly. I think
Yep,
he
he
summed
did.
up
Yes, he said it the
some.
best way. Yes,
He said that he all he knows is that Herb left the world doing what he
what he
loved:
loved. Yep.
cocaine and hookers. I think that's the moral of this story. But
I think that's a win-win situation for Mr. Herb. I mean, like I said, Brian was my next one to be the MVP.
absolutely, B. Brian Blair, he deserves some credit for this
Yes,
documentary. Yeah, he had a lot. He would be my unsung hero of this
yes,
documentary. He
absolutely.
says so. People said everyone has a Herb Abrams story, including some thinking that he faked his death. Marty Jesberg is one of the
Yes, one of
people
the people that think he's somewhere. He just like left and he's on an island somewhere.
because apparently there was an independent promotion a couple of years ago after Herb's death,
Uh-huh.
and there was a short man in red cowboy boots who came up to them, who accused them of stealing the UWF name, and Marty Jesberg is still convinced to this day, it seems, that
Somebody is
Herb
out
is
there.
still alive.
Yep.
I I mean,
I mean, was there a body? Because he actually has an actual grave site. I mean, did anyone take an autopsy? I mean, I don't know why couldn't we?
he was buried here in New York City.
Yep.
Apparently, Mick Foley talks about that it's impossible that Herb could keep quiet for 30 years.
And that made a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I would say so, and especially after this documentary, I doubt Herb Abrams would still be in protective custody at this point. We, Rick Allen actually visits Herb's grave site,
Grave site, yes.
and I love the fact that they kind of ended the whole documentary, kind of having everybody talk about how Herb touched their lives, how
Yeah.
that really affected them, how he gave them an opportunity that they really wouldn't have had otherwise. Rick Allen talks about he inherited Herb's
Dog.
white Snow White dog named Cokie.
Coco. Oh, Cokie. So funny.
This man had a problem. This man had a problem. It's too funny. But yes, he just was a diehard wrestling fan who had a passion for the business, wanted to become involved, wanted to create something within the wrestling business, and it just led to his whole downfall at the end because of his vices and the personal problems that he had. He was always a lot of his friends and the people that were close to him said that he was always looking to be accepted and respected, and to them they always felt like he always was already. So it was
Yeah.
that he was searching and fighting for that he had already achieved, and he never even realized it.
Yep. Correct. It's a sad, but I love, like you said, how they did the ending where everyone said something good, great about him, how Herb affected their lives. Yes.
And Foley kind of summed up that
Oh, that's a good one. If he
may
was
have.
alive, he
Well,
probably
no.
was.
Well, he said in his death that he didn't. He got what he didn't get in his life. That he
Yeah.
became
Oh,
a wrestling legend, and
yeah.
absolute. And especially after this documentary, he is 100% a wrestling legend. He is a guy that achieved more than anyone probably could have imagined for a wrestling fan with money who just wanted to come into the business.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
But tell him how Foley says that if Herb was alive, what would he be doing today?
Oh, if he Foley said Herb was alive, he'd probably be somewhere and probably everything would have caught up to him basically, and
And he said that he would
he
be
would
in jail.
go. He would be in jail. He'd go visit him, having some milk and some Herbie cookies.
He said if Herb was alive today, what would he be doing right now? And Foley pauses and says, "Time." And the guy interviewing him bust out laughing. It was they have the little reenactment with a fake Cactus Jack and a fake Herb in jail eating Herbie cookies with
Yep.
milk. Awesome
Yep.
ending.
Definitely.
Awesome episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Like I said at the top of this episode, the biggest surprise of season 2 for me. I think this was
Yeah.
a great episode. How about you?
This gets a good ranking. Definitely a surprise to me because I didn't have any expectation on this episode. I was like, I don't know, maybe this might be a week, maybe. Who knows? But definitely a great episode.
I'm gonna say I rank it right underneath Chris Benoit now. I need to separate the killers. I need to separate the killers of Benoit and
It's
Snuka,
such
and
a
I'm gonna say Benoit number one, Herb Abrams number two because it's such a big surprise, such a
hmm
great episode, and it doesn't have such the downs
hmm
as the Benoit. There's not murder. There's death,
yeah,
but there's not murder.
yeah,
So it doesn't have that deep of a down like the Benoit and the Snuka episode. Then I go Snuka. Then I go Uncle Jerome and Redneck Uncle David.
yeah,
and
yeah.
and then what else
Brawl
did we?
for all.
Brawl for all. Yes, Brawl for all.
I think that's got to be the Brawl for all is going to the bottom by the end of all of this
Good
is over.
good episode. Good episode. Don't get
Right,
it
right.
based on everything else in the season, it doesn't really gather up and gets weighed down a lot by the Russo Cornet theme.
Yep.
So
Definitely, yes.
that's my ranking for the Brawl for All for this season 2. You have it. Where do you have it in your listing?
I probably would have put it Benoit, uh both of our uncles, number 2. Then I put it at 3. Snooker would be 4.
Okay,
So that's how I would rank mine. And
got it.
then yeah, Brawl is definitely dead last.
Well, for all, you have something to strive for. Get out of the bottom, but there's
I
only
mean,
two
2 episodes.
episodes. 2 episodes left. Next up, we have the next episode of Dark Side of the Ring season 2 is about one of the most famous tag teams in professional wrestling history.
What did they do?
Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom. They started out in the NWA. They went all around the world and became one of the most feared and dominant tag teams in professional wrestling history, and had a very sad ending with the death and the problems outside of the ring of Road Warrior Hawk, and then the how those outside of the ring problems went on screen, and I think yes, we're gonna have another Vince McMahon portion of next week's episode
No,
because
he's in the whole season this year. Like he has something to do with everybody.
and Owen Hart, they gotta talk about him again. So it's
You know
like
they're gonna call him a scumbag. Oh my god, I can't. Oh god.
I'm just saying, Vince, you have a great history. I can't wait for Dark Side of the Ring the finale on Vince McMahon. That's what it's all leading up to. I need about 8 more seasons of this, and then the finale, the all end finales, is the Vince McMahon story.
Yeah,
That
man. Oh my God.
these two. But yes, it started. Then we ended off, and they talk about the tragic end of the tag team, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. So that's
Woo!
gonna be a very in depth one next week. So are you ready?
Lord, Lord. God, I'm gonna have to get myself together. I'm gonna have to pay. I'm gonna have a tissue and my pencil, and we're gonna get it together.
So tell them where they can find you on social media, Chrissy Love.
I am the sensation Miss Chrissy Love. You can find me on IG, Miss Chrissy Love or Chrissy Love underscore. You can find me on Facebook, Miss Chrissy Love or Crystal Lynch, and catch up on us on YouTube. Smackdown with the Lynches.
Absolutely. SmackDown with the Lynches. There's a new episode up right now. You can find me on Instagram at TrueHill_EpicSP3. And you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at True Hill Heat. Of course, push the like button if you enjoyed this video. Post your comment down below and tell us where this episode, Herb Abrams' story, Cocaine and Cowboy Boots, ranks in your listing of your ranking of season 2 of Dark Side of the Ring. And of course, at the end, push the subscribe button, push the bell to stay notified for all the great content right here on True Hill Heat. So for
Yes.
the princess of all the True Hills, the sensational Miss Chrissy Love, it is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. We are signing off for Dark Side of the Ring Season 2. Until next time.